Unveiling the Brac'thal is the debut full-length album from Hasturian Vigil, and we don't really have any sort of preamble to get to know this artist beforehand. I don't think they've released any demo tapes or EPs or any preliminary singles or anything like that. They've just sort of presented a full-length album, and it's a very strong result. I think it makes sense that this band is on Invictus Records with bands like Malacarpatan and Negative Plane, because they're sort of in that mode of writing longer form songs, almost like a funereal presence influences there, and maybe even the first Spirit Possession record, where they've got these long form songs that are led by lead guitar melodies, and they're very much focused on the early tunefulness of heavy and black metal and how those things formed together. So it is like an old school black metal style, but they've got their own lore and ideas behind it that makes it their own. And these folks, they played in other bands that people will sort of know. I think if you're familiar with, I guess, Irish underground metal in their area. Otherwise, uh, you're going to want to maybe think more something like Mortuary Drape or, again, Funereal Presence to get just kind of a general idea of what this band is all about. And then maybe think of like the thrash metal side of Zemial and how that developed over the years, and took a lot of turns. Maybe touches of progressive music moved into that sound. Otherwise, if you like Third Storm of the Sithral from Absu, I think that's a good reference to just kind of get the blood flowing to get interest in there. So otherwise, we've got a song here. We'll listen to a clip and you'll get an idea of what this record sounds like. So I think what impressed me right off the bat with this record is that the album art is thematic, the logo is good, the production values are strong. There's a real theme behind this whole thing, and they've got basically riffs to back it up. You could tell there's a long-term study of speed metal, thrash metal, and ancient black metal, and just heavy metal in general, to the point where this feels like a black heavy metal record in a lot of respects, but it's almost deceptively heavy. It becomes more riff oriented and knotted up as the more you listen to it. And of course, I love that kind of thing, but there's still a central black metal groove to all of it, which isn't all about blasting through it, but thoughtfully pacing itself through these long form songs. And they're actually quite long pieces, 8 to 10 minutes or so, most about 8 minutes, and they all avoid becoming too repetitive. They avoid becoming like an endless hallway, and they all have their distinct. Maybe they've got a chorus or they've got a chord progression or something that really brings you into it and kind of sells the song, the songs and the album over time. And they're not quite telling a story in the way that has like the many turns of like the most recent Negative Plane record. They're not quite up to that level of presentation, but they still met up with a very high standard. And in some ways, that reminded me of the black thrash out of Australia of a certain era, where there was still a lot of heavy metal behind everything they're doing. It's got a real feeling to it in that respect, but they've got the more aggressive blackened riffs to it. So I was a big fan of this. I thought it's a great record. There's a couple of, I felt like there were a couple of dead ends here and there, like where they could have expanded the song even further, or maybe one of the songs goes on too long. Really very small nitpicks here and there that don't, they kind of evened out over time, but it took a while to sort of see the nuance of the record. And that's not a problem for me. I can give a record enough time, but I know that with people's short attention spans, this will appeal to a listener who's patient and interested in the story they're telling, and likes this classic feeling of black metal and heavy metal coming together at once in a unique way. So yeah, I think that'll appeal to a certain fan, certainly me. And I felt like the immersion was the greatest strength of this album. That's where the kind of the score really peaks. And then my connection with the material, as I said, I'm a huge fan of a lot of the bands that I would reference here. Otherwise, everything is up to a very high standard for a debut. They've thought about everything, and the result is fantastic. So go ahead and read the review on the site for more information. The record comes out on February 2nd. That is tomorrow if this comes out today. And yeah, check it out, see if it's your thing.